I'm trying to thin down my collection and letting go of my Toy Biz and early Hasbro figures. But before I do that, let's check out the early Hasbro figures and their newer versions. Here's Union Jack from the early Hasbro era and the more recent Smart Hulk with Union Jack. The appearance of both figures follows very closely to his comic appearance. I don't mind the new figure being on the Bucky Cap body mold. He does at least look more bulky as compared to this body mold, which I really dislike. Even the head looks kind of small compared to the body. One thing about this body mold is that if I were to leave the upper torso in this position, it looks like the neck is kind of hunched forward. But if I were to bend the ab crunch one time to the back, then he looks like he's leaning back too much. So there's no middle ground for it because it clicks either here or the other one. So that's one thing I really don't like about this body mold. It makes the figure really hunch forward like this. The belt on the early Hasbro Union Jack can be removed. You can see there's a button here and you can just simply pop it off. For the Hasbro version, it can also be removed, but this time round, the button is well hidden as compared to the early Hasbro Union Jack. For both of the figures, the gun can only be held on the right hand because the trigger finger hand is only on the right and the knife is to be held on the left hand. For the handgun, the early Hasbro handgun has way better paintwork and sculpt as compared to the Hasbro version. Look at how it easily bends and the sculpt of the gun is barely there. You can barely see the revolver. This one is way better. It even has sculpt on the handle and these straps over here. However, for the knife, the newer version has better sculpt, but the paintwork is better on the previous version. And for the earlier version, the handle is so small that the hand is not able to grip it properly. It just sits loosely on the hands. The newer knife has a broader handle so that the hand is able to grip it properly. Here's how this figure looks like holding the previous gun, and it looks so much better as compared to holding this gun. It even fits the holster nicely. I'm going to let go of this previous Union Jack and just hold on to this. I'm deciding whether I should just keep the gun for this figure or not. Here's the early Hasbro Marvel Legends Nova from the Nemesis Wave and the more recent Walgreens exclusive Nova. The Nemesis Wave does not come with any accessories, but the Walgreens exclusive comes with alternate hands and also the World Mine. Just by looking at these two, definitely hands down, the newer one is way better than the previous one. The Walgreens exclusive has a more comic accurate appearance with the gold hands instead of having blue all the way for the hands and also having the shoulder pad. The star on the helmet is also so much better on the Walgreens version, unlike the early Hasbro, which looks like it has a starfish plastered on the helmet. In the comics, for the eyes, it's usually white out, but you can see the human eyes over here. So it's definitely better that the eyes are painted, although on the Walgreens version, it is blue instead of white. I would say the only downside about the new figure is that it doesn't have the star symbol at the back of the figure, unlike in the comics. And it's really great that the figure has the new swivel shoulder pads. There you can see that the shoulder pads can swivel around, so it follows the arms. It doesn't make it look awkward when you shift the arms around. See how the shoulder pad is able to swivel around? This is really good innovation by Hasbro. Hands down, the newer Nova is so much better. I'm going to get rid of this one. Here's the early Hasbro Guardian from the Ares BAF wave and the more recent Guardian from the Wendigo BAF wave. I think I'm not going to talk much about Guardian because hands down, this looks so much better. The size and the body mold is way better than the early Hasbro Guardian. The only thing that actually some Canadian collectors shared with me is that the leaf on this earlier Hasbro figure looks better compared to the newer figure because the leaves are supposed to be pointing upwards a bit, so the earlier Hasbro figure actually did it better. But then again, overall, this just simply looks so much better compared to the early Hasbro figure. And also, like I said, I don't like this body mold. Look at the way it hunched forward. Definitely keeping this one and getting rid of the early Hasbro Guardian. Here's the early Hasbro Blackbolt from the Nemesis BAF wave doing a dance move in the packaging, and the more recent Blackbolt from the Okoye BAF wave. There's actually another Blackbolt figure that came in the Thanos Imperative box set, and it has the same body mold with this Blackbolt except with a slightly different head sculpt. And yeah, I know my figure has warped knees on this one. It's the way I kept the figure. I'll have to hit it to straighten it out. The newer Blackbolt also comes with an extra accessory and alternate screaming head. And again, between these two figures, I definitely prefer the more recent Hasbro version, even though it's on the bulky body mold, because this body mold really has poor articulation and looks kind of skinny. It doesn't have bicep swivel, doesn't have waist swivel, and doesn't have thigh swivel as well. And also single hinge knee joint and elbow joint. And I feel the head looks kind of small compared to the body as well. So, not really a great figure in my opinion, although it is kind of interesting that it has the cloth cape. But when you open it up, I don't think it looks that great actually. And look at all this phrase, I'll need to cut this off. I prefer the head sculpt on the newer figure with the fork on the forehead kind of bigger in size compared to this earlier version. But for this figure, the wings are permanently attached on the tricep. I think they could have done it like Spider-Woman, whereby the wings are removable. This is how the figures look like with the arms out. Which look do you prefer? For me, I'm definitely sticking to the newer Hasbro and getting rid of the previous one, just like the other figures so far. Here's the early Hasbro Kang from the Ares BAF wave, which is a re-release of the Toy Biz Kang from the Fantastic Four wave. And here's the more recent Hasbro Kang from the Joe Fixit BAF wave. In terms of size, the new one is definitely better. And in terms of appearance and sculpt, I feel that the new one is also better because you can see this portion over here looks more cloth-like, just like in the comics. I like the earlier version, which looks kind of like armor instead of cloth. I would say the only good thing about the earlier version of Kang is that the head sculpt is really good. But I also feel the new one is just as good because his head is kind of broader, just like in the comics. Here's the back of the figure, and you can really see the sculpted texture of what seems to be the cloth attire being tucked in into the belt downwards. The newer Hasbro Kang comes with a futuristic looking gun, and for articulation wise, it's definitely better than Hasbro did. I think this would be a ball diaphragm joint instead of the ab crunch like on the previous version. It does allow a good range of movement. I definitely prefer the newer one. Just like the rest, I'm definitely gonna get rid of this previous version. So again, for this set of characters, I'm keeping all the recent Hasbro version and getting rid of all the early Hasbro versions of the characters. Really need to thin down my collection, and like I said, I'll stick to the more recent figures, which scales better with the rest of the recent Hasbro figures as well. Are there any out of these 5 figures that you prefer the early Hasbro version? Do share it in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you like my content, do subscribe and check out my other videos and my channel.